On Valentine's night, my long-distance boyfriend, Chase, and I had a FaceTime sex date planned. I bought some super sexy lace lingerie just for tonight. But the second the video call connected, his lab partner, Amber, walked right into the camera frame. She gasped, fake covering her mouth with her hand. "Oh my God, Chloe. Why are you dressed like that?" Blushing hard, I pulled my duvet up to my chin to cover myself. I glared at Chase through the screen. "Why is she in your room?" Before Chase could even open his mouth, Amber cut in. "Chase and I have a huge lab experiment to run tonight. We can only give you 3 minutes to chat." Chase looked incredibly awkward. "Chloe, the national tech competition is coming up and this experiment is critical to our project. I really have to go. Let's talk tomorrow, okay?" "But it's Valentine's Day," I said, my voice cracking. "We planned this." Amber rolled her eyes, practically snatching the phone from his hand. "Chloe, aren't you just taking classes at a local community college? It's fine if you don't care about your own future, but stop holding Chase back from his." And with that, Amber slammed the hang-up button. I let out a bitter laugh. 3 years of long distance. It was finally time to end this joke. I exited FaceTime and tapped on my chat history with Chase on Snapchat. I scrolled up. It was just a graveyard of my one-sided messages. I had sent him photos of my new haircut. I had sent him a picture of a pretty cloud. I had sent him a funny video of a stray cat on a tree branch. His replies? Practically non-existent. He'd send a dry, cool, hours later, or a thumbs-up emoji 2 days after my text. Sometimes, just a random sticker. I closed Snapchat and opened Instagram. Our cute couple photos? Deleted. Now, his feed was flooded with photos of him and Amber working late in the lab. In one photo, their hands were practically touching over a beaker. I locked my phone and stripped off the lingerie. Tonight was nothing but a humiliating slap in the face. A second later, a text popped up from Amber. "Chloe, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I'm just going to be honest with you. If you actually care about Chase, stop bothering him. He studies until 3 a.m. every night. Every time his phone buzzes, he loses focus, and it takes him 15 minutes to get back in the zone. The random spam you send him is honestly pointless. He doesn't want to reply, but he feels too guilty not to, which wastes so much of his mental energy. Do you have any idea how draining that is for him? Also, as an independent modern woman, maybe stop sending him those cheap, thirst trap photos. Is a woman's only value her body to you?" I stared at the screen, every word cutting like a needle. She had gone through our private chats? Chase was a total privacy freak. He had never even let me touch his phone during our 3 years together. I typed back, "Does he know you're texting me this?" Her reply was instant. "Of course. He said you keep sending him useless spam, and he didn't want to hurt your feelings by telling you directly. He asked me to handle it." My throat felt tight, like I was choking on sand. Amber added one more text. "Oh, and he wanted me to tell you not to call during study hours. Just text. He'll check it when he's free, but don't expect a reply. Be mature." Driven by a masochistic urge, I tapped onto Amber's Instagram profile. Her latest post from yesterday was at a cozy pizza place. Chase was sitting across from her, and she had snapped a photo of him eating a slice she had probably picked out for him. The caption read, "Weekend fuel with my favorite nerd." I scrolled down. Last week, they went hiking, posing with peace signs at the summit. Before that, it was a coffee shop date, late-night library study sessions, and a new dessert spot. He was in every single photo. The same Chase who always told me he was too busy. It turned out he wasn't busy. He just reserved his time for someone else. Tonight, I was supposed to tell him some life-changing news. I had just been accepted into the prestigious master's program at Columbia University, the very same campus he went to. I was finally moving to New York. We weren't going to be long distance anymore. But now, those words were stuck in my throat, turning into a dull, heavy ache. I opened Chase's Snapchat and sent him one last message. "Let's break up." The next day, I woke up and unlocked my phone. Inside our Snapchat chat, my text, "Let's break up," sat at the very bottom. Read. No reply. Just like almost every message I had sent him over the last 4 years, it had sunk to the bottom of the ocean. I stared at the screen and let out a dry laugh. He was so checked out of this relationship that he couldn't even bother to reply to a breakup text. Before I could lock my screen, a notification popped up in our university's club WhatsApp group. It was the roster for the upcoming regional college basketball tournament. My eyes instantly caught Chase's name. And right next to it, listed as the team manager, was Amber. My roommate leaned over my shoulder, taking a look. She shook her head. "Man, those two are practically the power couple of Columbia's bio department. They live in the library together. Even the professors say they're a perfect match." She pulled up a screenshot of Amber's Visco. Look at them. One is top of the class, the other is second. They literally share everything. I swallowed the bitterness in my throat and forced a nod. Yeah, they look great, but my fingernails dug deep into my palms. From that day on, I went out of my way to avoid the science building, the campus gym, and any route where I might run into him. But of course, fate is cruel. I bumped right into him outside the advisor's office. Chase looked a bit thinner. His shirt sleeves were rolled up to his elbows, and he was holding a stack of syllabus folders. When he saw me, he froze for a second, then forced a polite smile. Chloe?
Hey.
It's been a while. Want to grab some lunch? I wanted to say no, but a 4-year relationship deserved a proper, face-to-face ending. So I nodded.
Sure.
Before I could even step forward, Amber stepped out from behind the door, naturally sliding right next to Chase. She smiled warmly at me. Oh, Chloe, what a coincidence. We should all eat together. She tilted her head toward Chase. Did you pick a place? Chase shook his head. Amber immediately turned to me. Why don't you choose, Chloe? It's rare for us to hang out. How about that French cuisine place down the street? I suggested casually. Amber gasped softly. Oh, his stomach has been so sensitive lately. The doctor literally put him on a bland diet.
Didn't you know that, Chloe?
I pressed my lips together. Okay, what about the organic vegan bistro? Amber shook her head again. Too much oil in their dressings. He had terrible acid reflux the last time we went there. She paused, letting out a soft, pitying chuckle. Chloe, how do you not know his dietary restrictions by now? I suggested 4 or 5 more places, and every single time, Amber shut me down with some intimate detail about Chase's daily routine. Too far, too noisy, too dirty, too long of a wait. Finally, she sighed, looking like she was making a grand sacrifice. Fine, fine. Let me choose. You two are hopeless. Chase looked down at her and laughed softly. Thanks, Amber. Amber playfully nudged his shoulder. I'm literally carrying this friendship on my back. You owe me big time for this. As they bantered back and forth, I stood there like an invisible third wheel. Watching Chase look at Amber with that warm, easy smile made my chest tighten so hard I could barely breathe. For years of long distance, I thought we were just separated by miles. But the truth was, the distance was so wide I didn't even fit into his life anymore. The words, let's break up, felt heavy in my mouth. But seeing them like this, I realized I didn't even need to say it out loud. It didn't matter. When the menus arrived, Amber took charge. She pointed to an avocado salad, reminding Chase that he was on a low-sodium phase. Then she ordered a bowl of chicken noodle soup, smiling at him. You said you liked their broth last time.
See?
I remembered. Chase nodded, totally natural. Do you want to add an order of those fish tacos you love? Sitting across from them, I felt like a stranger who had accidentally sat at the wrong table. Amber suddenly slid the menu to me. Chloe, go ahead and order whatever you want. Before I could speak, Chase cut in. She doesn't really like spicy stuff. Let's get her the…
He stopped.
His finger hovered over the menu, his eyebrows knitting together. After a long pause, he pointed to 2 random dishes. Let's just get these. I looked down. Fried chicken tenders. A wave of nausea and sadness hit me. I was severely allergic to poultry. I hadn't eaten chicken in my entire life. He had completely forgotten. Amber tapped the back of Chase's head with her menu, teasing him. Are you studying too hard or what? I'm the one who loves chicken tenders, stupid. Chase blinked, looking flustered. He avoided my eyes and pushed the menu closer to me. Just order whatever you want. I shook my head and stood up, grabbing my bag. No, it's fine. I actually have a project to finish. I should go. I looked down at him one last time. Check your Snapchat messages when you have a second. He shrugged dismissively. Amber filters my messages for me. She'll let me know if there's anything urgent. I let out a tiny, hollow laugh. So, I wasn't even urgent enough to bypass his assistant. There was no point in waiting for a reply. I turned and pushed open the restaurant door. The cool New York breeze hit my face, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The next day was the campus basketball game. My roommate had dragged me along to support her younger brother, Jace. Jace was a freshman, and this was his first big game. He was so nervous his hands were shaking. I bought a pack of Gatorade and water bottles, setting up a little cheering station by the bench. The buzzer sounded, and I looked up. I immediately saw Chase driving the ball down the court. Amber was standing right by the sideline, holding a towel and a bottle of water. Every time Chase made a shot, she cheered and jumped. During timeouts, she'd immediately hand him his water and wipe his sweat. They looked like a seamless unit. Some girls standing near me whispered, They are so cute together. Chase is playing like a beast today. Amber's definitely his lucky charm. I forced a flat smile and turned my attention back to Jace. At the end of the third quarter, Chase walked over to the bench. Amber immediately draped a towel over his neck. I bent down to organize the water bottles, but in my peripheral vision, I saw Chase walking toward me. He glanced at the row of Gatorades at my feet and frowned. Amber already got me drinks. You don't need to do this. He paused, his tone turning lecture-like. Honestly, Chloe, you should spend less time hanging around gym courts and more time studying. I gripped the plastic bottle in my hand, staying silent. Look at Amber, Chase continued, his voice self-righteous. She's top of her class, winning research grants, and she still manages her time perfectly. You could really learn a thing or two from her. A sudden wave of exhaustion washed over me. I looked up, staring straight into his eyes. Whether I study or not is none of your business, Chase. He froze, his jaw tightening. Chloe, what is your attitude lately? I swear, ever since you started community college, you've lost all ambition. If your mindset stays like this, how are we supposed to have a future? A future? I interrupted, my eyes stinging. We don't have a future. He opened his mouth to speak, but went silent. He bent down, reaching for one of the Gatorades near my feet. But before his hand could touch the bottle, another hand snatched it away. Jace cracked the cap open, took a massive gulp, and grinned down at me. Thanks, Chloe. This is exactly what I needed. Jace then stepped forward, his tall, athletic frame completely blocking Chase from my view. Chase's hand hovered in the air for a second before he dropped it awkwardly. He glared at Jace, then looked back at me, his eyes dark with irritation. Amber wandered over, looking between us with a fake innocent smile. Oh, Chloe, did you come here just to see Jace? No wonder you brought so many drinks. She tilted her head. I was wondering why you didn't even look at Chase once during the whole game. Before I could respond, Chase's face went cold. I looked at Amber and smiled thinly. Amber, you're so obsessed with watching me, people might think you're the one trying to get with Jace. Chloe, Chase snapped, his voice low and dangerous. What the hell is wrong with you? Amber has done nothing but try to help you, and this is how you treat her? Stop being so toxic. Before I could even defend myself, he stepped closer, his voice rising with frustration. Every time I had a rough semester, who was there for me? Amber. When I was pulling all-nighters and about to crash, who stayed up with me? Amber. When I had a fever and had to go to the clinic, who stayed by my side all night? His eyes actually looked red, his voice shaking. You ask me why I don't reply to your texts. Think about it, Chloe. Where were you when I actually needed you? The bench went completely quiet. A few players glanced over at us. Amber grabbed his sleeve, looking like she was trying to calm him down, but the smug look in her eyes gave her away. At that moment, the thin thread holding my heart together for the past 4 years finally snapped. Where was I? My voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise of the gym. Chase, freshman year, before finals, you had a fever. I called you 11 times. You didn't answer a single one. The next day, you told me your phone was on silent, and I believed you. Sophomore year, during the winter, my boss at my part-time job stiffed me on my paycheck. I was crying on the curb and sent you a voice note saying how scared and sad I was. You replied 2 days later with a stupid hug emoji. Last month on my birthday, I stayed up until 2 a.m. waiting for a text. You didn't even say happy birthday. The next day, you told me you forgot and that I was being too sensitive. I stared at him, tears finally spilling over my lashes. You say I wasn't there when you needed me?
Did you ever give me a chance to be?
Every time you needed someone, Amber was already standing there. Where was I supposed to stand, Chase? Chase's mouth opened, his lips trembling, but no words came out. Amber let go of his sleeve and whispered, Chase, let's just go. Chloe's obviously in a bad mood. I turned to walk away, but suddenly, a loud shout echoed through the gym. Watch out. In my peripheral vision, a heavy orange shadow came flying toward me at high speed. I tried to dodge, but it was too fast. Thwack. Before the ball even hit me, I saw Chase reflexively throw his body over Amber, shielding her head and shoulders with his back. The ball hadn't even been heading toward her. As I stumbled backward and hit the hardwood floor, a sharp, blinding pain shot through my skull, but my chest felt incredibly light. Amber screamed, Chase, the ball hit Chloe. Chase finally turned around, his face completely pale. Jace rushed over, scooping me up in his arms before Chase could even take a step. I'm taking her to the campus clinic, Jace growled, running past him. I closed my eyes. My head throbbed with agony, but the heavy stone that had been crushing my chest for 3 years was finally gone. In the clinic, Chase let out a sigh of relief. The doctor said it's just a mild concussion. Nothing major. I didn't say anything, staring at the ceiling. He pulled up a plastic chair and sat down. The game just ended, and I have to catch the last train back to my campus.
Get some rest.
I'll come see you next time. He paused, his voice softening. About what happened on the court, don't overthink it. It was just an instinct. You look like you've lost weight, Chloe.
Make sure you eat.
Text me if you need anything.
I
promise I'll reply. If this were a few months ago, those few soft words would have been enough to make me swallow all my tears and wait for his next promise. But now, they sounded completely empty, like dust landing on water, not even leaving a ripple. I nodded blankly. Okay. He waited, expecting me to say more. When I didn't, he stood up slowly, walking toward the door. At the threshold, he looked back at me, hesitating, as if waiting for me to beg him to stay. Go back and read the messages I sent you, I said quietly. He nodded. Okay, I will. The next day, my phone remained completely silent. He had promised to read the messages, but still, no reply. I opened Snapchat, held down his name, and tapped delete friend. Then, I packed a bag and bought a one-way train ticket to a quiet beach town. The train to Montauk in late February was nearly empty. It rattled along the south shore of Long Island, the tracks flanked by skeletal trees and salt marshes frozen into stiff, silver sheets. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass of the window, watching the gray afternoon dissolve into a bruised violet.
Dusk.
My head still throbbed with a dull, rhythmic ache behind my left temple, a lingering souvenir from the basketball, but the physical pain was a quiet, manageable thing compared to the vast, hollow silence that had settled inside my chest. I had rented a small, weathered cottage 2 miles from the lighthouse.
It was
off-season, so the rent was cheap, paid for by the savings from the 3 part-time jobs I'd worked during my associate's program. The cottage smelled of damp pine, old books, and the faint, sharp tang of sea salt that seemed to cling to every surface. On my first night, I didn't unpack. I wrapped myself in a heavy wool blanket, sat on the small wooden porch, and listened to the Atlantic Ocean tearing itself apart against the rocky shore in the dark. For 4 years, my life had been a series of calculations. If I study for 3 hours now, I can call Chase at 9. If I save $50 this week, I can buy a train ticket to see him next month. If I don't text him during his lab hours, he won't get stressed. I had shrunk myself into the margins of his ambition, believing that if I was quiet enough, supportive enough, and patient enough, there would eventually be room for me in the life he was building. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. The screen lit up, casting a cold blue glow over my fingers. I opened Snapchat. His name was gone from my friends list, but the chat history remained in my archived messages, a tomb of gray text bubbles. I scrolled down, past the unread, "Let's break up" message, past the years of unanswered photos, and dry, single-word replies. I took a deep breath, the cold air stinging my lungs, and tapped delete. Conversation. Then I went to his contact card, clicked the red text at the bottom, and blocked his number. I did the same on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I did not feel a sudden rush of liberation. I felt cold. I felt a deep, exhausting emptiness, like a house that had been cleared of all its furniture. But as I walked back inside and locked the door behind me, I realized that for the first time in 4 years, nobody was ignoring me. The silence in the cottage wasn't a rejection. It was just quiet. The next morning, the sun rose thin and pale over the water. I set up my laptop on the wooden dining table. My admission letter from Columbia University sat in my inbox. I had received it 3 weeks ago, but I hadn't opened the attachments. Now I clicked through the enrollment portal. Dear Chloe, it is our pleasure to inform you that you have been admitted to the Master of Science in Bioinformatics program at Columbia University for the upcoming fall semester. The program was highly selective, bridging high-level computational data with biological research. When I had applied, I had done so with the desperate, foolish hope of surprising Chase, of showing him that I wasn't just taking classes at a local community college, that I was capable of standing beside him. Now, reading the letter, I felt a strange, detached sense of irony. I wasn't going to Columbia for Chase anymore. I was going because it was the only piece of my future that still belonged entirely to me. My phone buzzed on the table. It wasn't a block number. It was an iMessage from Jace. Jace. Hey Chloe. Just wanted to check in. How's the head holding up? The team. Doc said you should avoid screens, but knowing you, you're probably staring at one right now. A small, genuine smile crept onto my face. Jace had been texting me every day since the incident at the gym. His texts were simple, low pressure, and entirely devoid of the heavy, conditional tone I had grown so used to. Chloe, I'm fine, Jace. Just looking at the ocean. And yes, I am staring at a
Screen.
Don't tell the doctor. Jace, I knew it.
Typical.
Glad you're out of the city though. You looked like you needed to breathe. Let me know when you're back. I owe you a proper dinner for saving me from that basketball. Chloe, you didn't save me, Jace. You just carried me to the clinic. Jace, details, details.
Get some rest.
I set the phone down. I spent the rest of the day walking along the shoreline. The wind was fierce, whipping my hair across my face and turning my cheeks bright red. I let the salt air scrub away the lingering scent of Chase's cologne, the memory of Amber's smug, pitying smiles, and the humiliating sting of the restaurant where my boyfriend of 4 years had tried to order me
Chicken.
I stayed in Montauk for 3 weeks. I ran every morning until my legs burned and my lungs screamed. I read thick textbooks on molecular biology and Python, scripting until my eyes grew heavy. By the time I boarded the train back to the city to prepare for my move, the girl who had cried on the gym floor felt like a character in a book I had read a long time ago. The transition to Columbia in the late summer was a blur of heavy humidity, moving boxes, and the relentless pace of New York City. I found a tiny studio apartment in Morningside Heights, just 3 blocks from the campus. It was on the 5th floor of a walk-up, with a fire escape that looked out over a narrow alley, but it was mine. On the first day of orientation, the campus was alive with the nervous energy of thousands of new students. I wore a simple black knit top, dark jeans, and had my hair pulled back into a neat, high ponytail. I felt different. The quiet confidence I had pieced together in Montauk had solidified into a protective armor. My advisor was Dr. Evelyn Vance, a legendary figure in the bioinformatics
Department.
She was a sharp, elegant woman in her late 50s with silver hair and eyes that could cut through a poorly formatted dataset in half a second. Your undergraduate research on genomic sequencing algorithms was impressive, Chloe, Dr. Vance said, looking over my file in her office. But the graduate level at Columbia is a different beast. I don't tolerate half measures. You will be expected to assist in the lab 20 hours a week on top of your coursework. I'm ready, Dr. Vance, I said, my voice steady. I didn't come here to do things by halves. She looked up from her tablet, her gaze lingering on me for a moment before a small, rare smile touched her lips. Good. We start tomorrow at 8. 3 weeks into the semester, I was fully submerged in the rhythm of the lab. My days began at 6 in the morning and ended long after the sun went down.
I
was learning to navigate complex data visualization tools, mapping genetic variations with a precision I hadn't known I possessed. I had successfully avoided the undergraduate areas of the campus, but I knew Columbia wasn't big enough to keep me hidden forever. The inevitable collision happened on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in the Butler Library Cafe. I was standing in line for an Americano, reviewing a set of sequencing results on my tablet, when a familiar voice made the skin on the back of my neck
prickle.
I'm telling you, Chase, if we don't get the extension on the grant proposal, we're going to lose the hood space in Lab 4. I know, Amber. I'll talk to the department chair tomorrow. Just let me get some coffee first. I didn't freeze. I didn't hide. I simply stood my ground, my eyes fixed on my screen, scrolling through a line of code. Chloe? I looked up. Chase was standing 3 feet away, holding a leather messenger
Bag.
He looked exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his hair was unwashed, sticking up in messy tufts. Beside him, Amber looked as polished as ever in a beige trench coat, though her eyes narrowed the second she recognized me. Hey, Chase said, taking a half step forward. His voice was a mix of disbelief and a strange, sudden desperation. What are you doing here? I thought you were back home. I tried to find you at the local campus, but your roommate said you moved. I did, I said. My voice was calm, conversational, and entirely devoid of emotion. It was the tone you would use with a distant acquaintance you bumped into at a grocery store. You're in New York? Chase's eyes scanned my face, searching for the soft, pleading expression he was used to. Instead, he found nothing but a cool, polite blankness.
Why didn't you tell me?
I've been trying to reach you.
I.
Checked Snapchat, but your account was gone. I tried calling, but the calls wouldn't go through. I blocked you, Chase, I said simply. Amber let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. Blocked him? Chloe, honestly, are we still playing high school games? Chase has been stressed out of his mind with his thesis, and you're still throwing tantrums because of some stupid misunderstanding on Valentine's Day. I turned my gaze to Amber. I didn't glare. I just looked at her, letting the silence stretch between us until her fake confident smile began to falter. Amber, I said quietly, I don't think I was speaking to you. Amber's jaw dropped. She looked at Chase, expecting him to defend her, but Chase was staring at me, his face pale. Chloe, please, Chase whispered, ignoring Amber's tug on his sleeve. We need
To talk.
for years. We can't just end it like this. You can't just block me
And vanish.
It isn't fair. Fair? I asked, a faint, humorless smile touching my lips. Chase, I sent you a message saying we were broken up. You read it. You didn't reply for weeks.
I.
Simply took you at your word. Or rather, your lack of one. I was busy. Chase burst out, his voice rising enough to make a few students in the cafe turn their heads. The competition was that week and the lab. You're always busy, Chase, I interrupted, my voice dropping to a quiet, lethal murmur. But only for me. You seem to have plenty of time for hiking, pizza, dates, and coffee with Amber. I'm not mad anymore. I've just moved on. I suggest you do the same. Are you serious? Amber stepped in, her eyes flashing with anger.
You're
acting like you're some kind of victim. Do you have any idea how much Chase has achieved while you were sitting in your little community college bubble?
He
Doesn't have time for your drama. He's working on a project that could win the National Biotech Initiative. Before I could reply, a tall figure stepped into the cafe, shaking the rain off. A large umbrella. Hey, Chloe, Jace said, his deep voice slicing through the tension. He walked over, his broad shoulders instantly making the small cafe feel crowded.
He was
wearing his Columbia athletic hoodie, his damp hair messy but stylish. He smiled down at me, then looked at Chase and Amber, his expression instantly turning
cold.
Is there a problem here? Chase's eyes flicked from Jace to me, a sudden, ugly realization dawning on his
Face.
You're with him? We're having lunch, Jace said, stepping slightly in front of me, his physical presence completely dominating the space. And Chloe said she was done talking.
To you.
Jace, this is none of your business, Chase snapped, trying to sound authoritative, but his voice cracked slightly. Chloe and I have history. History is in the past, man, Jace said, his tone dangerously calm. And right now you're bothering her. Move along. Amber grabbed Chase's arm, her face flushed with embarrassment. Chase, come on. It's not worth it. Let them have their little lunch. We have a meeting with the dean in 10 minutes anyway. Chase looked at me one last time, his eyes filled with a mixture of shock, anger, and a deep, burning regret. But I didn't look back. I turned to the barista, paid for my Americano, and walked out of the cafe with Jace, leaving them standing in the rain. You okay? Jace asked as we walked under his large umbrella toward the library. I'm fine, I said, and to my surprise, I actually meant it. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking. Thanks for stepping in. I didn't do anything, Jace grinned, his eyes warm. You had them completely
Handled.
You look like a queen ice skating over thin ice. I just provided the muscle. I laughed, the sound bright and clear in the damp afternoon air.
Still I
appreciate it. So, Jace said, his tone turning slightly tentative. He really didn't know you were at Columbia?
No.
I didn't see the point in telling him. He made it very clear that my life wasn't his concern anymore. Well, he's an idiot, Jace said simply. But his loss is our department's gain. And mine. I looked at him, noticing the slight flush on his cheeks that had nothing to do with the cold rain. Jace had been a constant, gentle presence in my life over the last few months. He didn't demand my attention, he didn't judge my ambition, and he never made me feel like I was a chore he had to manage. But I wasn't ready to rush into anything. The wounds of a 4-year relationship didn't heal in a few months, and Jace seemed to understand that. He was content to walk beside me, waiting until I was ready to take the next step. As the weeks pressed on, the workload in the graduate department intensified. Dr. Vance had selected me as one of the 3 student researchers for her primary project, an advanced machine learning model designed to predict oncology mutations. It was a massive opportunity, one that came with a significant stipend and a guaranteed publication credit. One evening, I was working late in the computational biology suite on the 4th floor of the northwest corner building. The room was quiet, filled only with the low hum of the servers and the clicking of my keyboard. The heavy glass door clicked open. I didn't look up, assuming it was one of the other grad students. Chloe. I paused, my fingers hovering over the keys. I closed my eyes for a brief second, then turned my chair around. Chase was standing in the doorway. He wasn't wearing his lab coat. He looked smaller, his shoulders slumped, his eyes bloodshot and weary. How did you get in here? I asked, my voice flat. This floor is restricted to graduate researchers. I waited for someone to walk out, he said quietly. He walked toward my desk, his eyes taking in the dual monitor setup, the complex genomic charts on the screens, and the stack of advanced computational textbooks. I didn't believe it. When Amber told me, she saw your name on the graduate research assistant roster. You're working with Dr. Vance? I am. But how? Chase's voice was a mixture of awe and confusion. Bioinformatics at Columbia is one of the most competitive master's programs in the country. You were just taking general ed classes at a community college last semester. I was taking prerequisite classes online while working 30 hours a week. Chase, I said, my voice cutting through his confusion like a scalpel.
I
already had my bachelor's degree from a state school. I took those classes because I needed the specific programming credits to qualify for this program.
I
tried to tell you when I got accepted. I was going to tell you on Valentine's
Day.
Chase froze. His mouth opened slightly, his mind translating the timeline. Valentine's Day, the FaceTime call.
Yes.
The call where you gave me 3 minutes before Amber hung up on me.
The
night I got my acceptance letter. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. You were so convinced that I was holding you back, so sure that my mindset was dragging you down, that you never even bothered to ask what I was working on. Chloe. I didn't know, he whispered, his face turning a sickly shade of
white.
I swear I didn't know. If you had just told me. I tried, I said. But your phone was always on silent. Or Amber was filtering your messages. Or you were too busy studying until 3 in the morning to care about anything I had to say. She told me you were just sending spam, Chase said, his voice rising in desperate defense. Amber said you were constantly texting me useless things, distracting me from my research. She said she was trying to protect my focus. And you believed her because it was easier than dealing with me, I said.
You
let another woman dictate your relationship because you were too cowardly to
tell me you had checked out.
You let her delete our photos, Chase. You let her talk down to me, and you stood there and watched. I was confused, he cried, taking a step closer, his hands shaking.
The
pressure here is immense, Chloe. I felt like I was drowning, and Amber was always there. She made things easy, but it was never like what we had. It was always about the work, about the competition. She doesn't care about me.
Not
like you did. Did, I emphasized quietly. Past tense, Chase. No, please don't say that, he pleaded, his eyes filling with tears. We can fix this. I'll talk to Amber. I'll tell her to back off. We can start over. You're here now at Columbia. We're on the same campus. We can finally have the life we planned. The life I planned. I corrected him. You were never in it, Chase. You were just waiting for someone better to come along, and when you thought Amber was that person, you threw me away like trash. Now that you see I'm not the pathetic girl you thought I was, you want to crawl back. I stood up, packing my laptop into my bag. I have to go, Chase. I have a presentation tomorrow. Chloe, wait. He reached out to grab my wrist, but I stepped back, his hand catching only empty air. Don't touch me, I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. If you ever come to my lab or try to contact me again, I will report you to the department. Head for harassment. I am not your backup plan. I walked past him, the heavy glass door clicking shut behind me, leaving him alone in the dark lab. The next 2 months passed in a flurry of intense academic competition. The campus was gearing up for the Columbia Science and Innovation Symposium, an annual event where the top research teams presented their projects to a panel of venture capitalists, industry leaders, and national grant committees.
It was the
Precursor to the National Biotech Initiative, the very competition Amber and Chase had been obsessing over for the past year. Dr. Vance's team was selected as one of the keynote presenters. As the lead student researcher on the machine learning model, I was tasked with presenting the core data structures and predictive accuracy metrics. The symposium was held in the Grand Rotunda of Lowe Memorial Library. The space was magnificent, filled with high-vaulted ceilings, marble pillars, and rows of sleek, high-tech presentation booths. I wore a tailored navy blazer and dark trousers, my hair styled in a sleek, professional low bun. As I set up our digital display, I felt a calm, steady focus settle over me. This was what I had worked for. Not for a boy, not to prove a point, but for myself. "You look incredible, Chloe," a voice said. I looked up to see Jace standing there, wearing a sharp charcoal suit that made him look less like a college athlete and more like a young executive.
He was
holding a small bouquet of white roses. "Jace," I smiled, a genuine warmth flooding my chest. "What are you doing here? Don't you have practice?" "Skipped it," he grinned, handing me the flowers. "I wouldn't miss this for the world. You're about to show this entire university what you're capable of." "Thank you," I whispered, holding the roses close. "It means a lot that you're here." "I'll be in the front row," he said, giving my shoulder a gentle squeeze before walking toward the seating area. As I turned back to my booth, I noticed a commotion a few rows down. Chase and Amber were setting up their presentation. They were representing the undergraduate biology division, presenting their project on targeted enzyme therapies. But something was clearly wrong. Amber was hissing at Chase, her face tight with anger, while Chase stared blankly at his tablet, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. Their booth was disorganized, their digital posters flickering with formatting errors. "I told you to run the validation sets last night, Chase." Amber's voice carried over the murmur of the crowd. "Why is the error margin so high?" "The model didn't converge," Chase said, his voice flat and exhausted.
"The
dataset we used had too many gaps. I told you we needed to clean the data first, but you wanted to rush the presentation. We are presenting to the National Grant Committee in 20 minutes. Amber snarled, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "If we don't get this funding, the project is dead.
Fix it."
Chase looked up, his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on me. I didn't look away. I simply stood by my sleek, perfectly calibrated display, holding my white roses, looking at him with nothing but cool indifference. He looked away quickly, his shoulders slumping further. At 2 o'clock, the keynote presentations began. The panel of judges, led by Dr. Vance and several high-profile executives from major biotech firms, walked from booth to booth. When they reached Chase and Amber's presentation, the atmosphere grew tense. Amber took the lead, her voice bright and rehearsed as she ran through their
slides.
She spoke with a practiced, aggressive confidence, glossing over the technical details to focus on the revolutionary potential of their enzyme
Therapy.
The therapeutic application is clear, one of the judges, a sharp-eyed woman from a leading pharmaceutical firm, noted. But your data integrity is questionable. Your control group shows a standard deviation that suggests significant noise in your initial sequencing. How do you account for this? Amber faltered, her smile turning brittle. We believe the noise is an anomaly of the sequencing platform we used. With proper funding, we can run a
cleaner set.
Actually, Dr. Vance cut in, her tone dry and unforgiving. That noise is a classic symptom of overfitting your model to a small sample size.
Did you not
run a cross-validation analysis? Amber looked frantically at Chase, nudging him sharply. Chase stepped forward, but he looked completely checked out. We ran a basic validation, but the computational resources required we didn't have the algorithms to process it efficiently. I see, the judge said, making a brief, dismissive note on her tablet. Thank you for your time. They moved on, leaving Amber standing there, her face burning red with humiliation, while Chase simply stared at the floor. 2 booths later, the judges arrived at my station. Chloe, Dr. Vance said, her eyes shining with professional pride. Please, present our oncology mutation prediction model. I took a deep breath, tapped my tablet, and began. My voice was steady, clear, and confident. I didn't rush. I explained the core architecture of our machine learning model, showing how we had utilized advanced data cleaning techniques to eliminate the very noise that had ruined Chase and Amber's project. I demonstrated our predictive accuracy, which sat at an unprecedented 94%. We used a multi-layered cross-validation approach, I explained, gesturing to the clean, vibrant data visualizations on the screen. By training our algorithm on diverse datasets from 3 separate international cancer registries, we ensured that the model is robust enough to adapt to varying sequencing platforms without overfitting. The lead judge leaned forward, his expression filled with genuine interest. This is exceptional work, Chloe. The computational efficiency of your algorithm is highly impressive. Did you write this script yourself? Yes, I said. With guidance from Dr. Vance, I developed the primary data processing pipeline over the last 3 months. Incredible, the judge smiled. This is exactly the kind of innovation the National Initiative is looking to fund. Outstanding presentation. As the judges moved to the next booth, a quiet, collective murmur of applause rippled through the onlookers. I looked up and saw Chase standing at the back of the crowd. He was staring at me, his face a mask of profound, devastating realization. He had spent years telling me that I had lost all ambition, that I was holding him back from his bright future. And now he was watching me stand in the spotlight he had chased his entire life, completely out of his reach. The symposium concluded with the announcement of the research grants. Dr. Vance's team was awarded the primary funding prize of $50,000, along with an invitation to present at the National Biotech Conference in Chicago. After the crowd began to disperse, Jace helped me pack up my presentation materials. You were amazing, Chloe, he said, his eyes glowing. I didn't understand half of the coding stuff, but the way you handle those judges? Total boss move. Thanks, Jace. I smiled, feeling a deep, satisfying warmth in my chest. I couldn't have done it without your support. I'll meet you by the exit, he said, carrying a heavy box of brochures. Take your time. As I was shutting down my laptop, a shadow fell over my desk. I didn't need to look up to know who it was. Chloe. Chase was standing there. He had his hands shoved deep into his pockets, his posture completely defeated. Congratulations, he said quietly. Your project, it was incredible. You really built that pipeline from scratch. I did, I said, not looking at him as I zipped up my laptop sleeve. I can't believe how blind I was, he whispered, his voice cracking. I spent so much time thinking I was the one who was going to make it, and you were always smarter than me, weren't you? You just let me have the spotlight, because you loved me. I paused, holding the zipper of my bag. I looked up, meeting his eyes. No, Chase, I said quietly. I didn't let you have the spotlight because I was hiding. I did it because I thought we were a team. I thought your success was my success. But you saw my love as weakness. You thought because I was quiet and supportive, I had nothing of my own to offer. I'm sorry, he sobbed, a tear finally escaping his eye and rolling down his pale cheek. I am so sorry, Chloe. I ruined everything. Amber and we got disqualified from the regional competition last week because our data was flawed. The department head is reviewing our lab access. And Amber, she's transferring to another lab. She blamed the whole failure on me. Of course she did, I said, a faint, pitying smile touching my lips. Amber doesn't care about you, Chase. She cared about your academic status. The second you stopped being useful to her, she was always going to throw you to the wolves. You traded a 4-year relationship with someone who actually cared about your soul for a transactional partnership with a climber. Please, he begged, reaching out, his hands trembling. Is there any way? Just one coffee. Let me explain. Let me show you I can change. Before I could answer, a sharp voice cut through the quiet rotunda. Chase. Amber was walking toward us, her face pale and furious. She was holding a stack of evaluation forms. The judge's feedback just came in, she hissed, ignoring my presence entirely. They said our project lacked conceptual depth and rigor. They practically called us amateurs. You said you had the algorithms handled. This is your fault. Chase turned to her, his expression suddenly shifting from sorrow to a cold, bitter anger. My fault. Chase laughed, a harsh, dry sound that echoed in the empty hall. You're the one who rushed the presentation, Amber. You're the one who insisted. We didn't need to validate the data because the presentation style was more important. You spent more time picking out your outfit and posting on Instagram than actually working in the lab. How dare you? Amber gasped, her face flushing with rage. I carried this project. I got us the dean's meeting. I managed your entire life, so you could focus, and this is how you treat me. You didn't manage my life. Chase yelled, his voice rising in a desperate release of months of pent-up frustration. You isolated me.
You deleted my
Photos with Chloe. You sent her texts from my phone without my permission. Amber froze, her eyes flicking to me for a brief second before she recovered her footing. I did that for your own good. She was a distraction.
She was a
Community college nobody who was dragging you down. She is a graduate researcher under Dr. Vance. Chase screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. She just won a $50,000 grant.
She has a
Higher GPA than both of us combined. The only one who was dragging me down was you. As they stood there in the grand, historic rotunda of Columbia University, screaming at each other like petulant children, I felt a sudden, profound sense of clarity. This was the power couple of the biology department. This was the brilliant, untouchable future Chase had traded our love for. I picked up my laptop bag, adjusted the strap over my shoulder, and walked past
them.
They didn't even notice me leave. They were too busy tearing each other's illusions apart, drowned in the bitter, toxic mess of their own making. I pushed open the heavy wooden doors of Low Library and stepped out onto the wide granite steps. The autumn air was crisp and clean, carrying the scent of dry leaves and rain-washed stone. The campus was bathed in the warm, golden glow of the late afternoon sun, the shadows of the old buildings stretching long and elegant. Across the plaza, Jace was waiting for me at the bottom of the steps, holding my box of materials. When he saw me, his face broke into a wide, bright smile. Everything set? He asked. Yes, I said, walking down to join him. Everything is set. He looked at me, his eyes searching my face for any sign of the old pain, the lingering shadow of the boy who had broken my heart. But he found nothing but
peace.
Where to now, partner? He asked, nudging my shoulder with his. I looked out over the campus, past the gates of Columbia, to the sprawling, endless skyline of New York City. The world was vast, loud, and full of possibilities I hadn't even begun to explore. Let's get some dinner, I said, a soft, genuine smile spreading across my face. And Jace. Yeah, no chicken tenders. He let out a loud, booming laugh that warmed the cool autumn air.
Deal.
Only the best for the star of the bio department. As we walked together down the wide, sunlit path, I didn't look back.
The past
was a closed book, its pages worn and faded. Ahead of us, the city lights were starting to flicker on, bright and steady in the gathering dusk, waiting for us to write the next chapter.